Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Marian Temelkov.
Hello, everyone, and I'm super excited for today's episode, and episode number 33. As you guys know, we bring together leaders who care, and today we have someone really special and an inspirational speaker and unique coach on mental health. I think we all need it in this moment in time. And Nick, thank you so much for making it and joining us for today's episode. I have a lot of questions for you, but before I start, why don't you just share a brief introduction and tell us who you are and how, what's unique about the mental health?
It's a good place to start, Marianne. Firstly, thank you very much for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be here. So my job is I'm an inspirational speaker on the lived experience of mental health. First question, Marianne. Yes, that is a job. I've been doing this for around 6 years, sharing my experiences of my own mental illness and mental health to increase engagement in the well-being and mental health initiatives that are out there. So actually, I guess my unique element is I'm not solution focused. Mm-hmm. For me, the gap is between somebody that needs help but doesn't feel empowered to reach out for help. And that's the bit that I try to kind of fill by using lived experience as a vehicle to generate that engagement in the solutions that are out there and the professionals that are out there.
Awesome. And you're absolutely right. There's really, there's people that don't know really where to look for help. What are the signs? I guess starting with that, how do we know, and there's a lot of really helping ways out there that sometimes people feel more comfortable to find themselves to solve. And I think probably that's a good place to start if you try to solve it yourself. But if it doesn't work, you have no way to find it. But Nick, tell us about your story and how did you get into it? First, you mentioned you have a life experience, and that's it would be great to hear that.
So I guess in one word, Marianne, it's I had a breakdown. The breakdown was the one word. I think that for me, because I had experiences of mental illness, so namely obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD, which I guess is quite commonly known as a term. However, because it wasn't addressed that it would be the way it would now, I was a child at the time, it changed and morphed into something called generalized anxiety disorder. And this is something that I see a lot in my clients and audiences, and I'm sure you do in the work that you do as well, where people continue to run on high anxiety and high nervous energy. And that's how I live my life through education, even though I was highly successful, head prefect in every school, top grades. So from the outside looking in, very successful, into my corporate life, which was always client facing, both in the office solutions sector and also head of partnerships for a software company. All of those kind of periods of my life, I was running on high anxiety. And the problem is that you can run, but you can only run for so long. And that's the problem, is that when you continue to run at high anxiety, you experience burnout. And that was kind of what happened to me. And prolonged burnout led to a breakdown in 2012. And that's kind of what happened to me. From that point, I actually used speaking as a therapy initially. And then I started to see the force for good it can be to deliver a message of hope and inspiration to other people, to empower them to create positive change in their lives as well. And because I'm not solution focused, I don't coach in that sense. I guess the only thing that I coach is how other people can tell their stories. That's the only thing that I do. So for me, I just see myself as the vehicle that takes people from the position that they're experiencing to a solution. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up doing what I do. I guess the one difference was that the rooms got bigger, the audiences got bigger. I then started to travel the world speaking about this stuff, and then it got really kind of interesting, to use that term. Interesting covers a whole manner of sins as a word. And right through to today, I work with organizations such as KFC, with Harvey Nichols and Ernst & Young, I was working with today. Lots of different big organizations on helping them to incorporate lived experience into their mental health strategy. And that's not just me or any other external people. It's helping their people to be able to feel safe to tell their stories from within. And that's what I do.
This is amazing. First of all, thank you for doing what you're doing, Nick. I mean, you just said something, of really how it all happened, and I'll come back to it. But just, promoting and creating and educating companies and leaders to be able to be consciously creating those safe environments. For some leaders comes naturally, which is a blessing, but for others, they may not know exactly how to organize that. And it's how do you kind of how as a leader, or how do we create those safe environments? How do we make people feel safe so they can take off their masks? Because really, if you work in an organization where you don't have to hide anything, and you're open and people really quite safe to share their weaknesses and strength, I think these are some of the, I guess, they top the ranks of the best companies to work for often, in that because the performance improves, everything improves in that sense. But it seems simple and common sense to do, but it's not very often seen in practice, I guess. And maybe you can tell us your experience. That's just what I see, but as you say, you're the expert.
It's an interesting one, because I think we all know, essentially, the vulnerability can be a superpower. Vulnerability can be the key to unlocking a lot of our biggest challenges. Yeah. Certainly was for me. But it's kind of, we're conditioned to kind of have that fear around stepping up in any capacity. It's the reason why Harvard consider public speaking a greater fear than death. We fear ridicule more than we do dying. And that was a survey result that they actually did. We fear putting ourselves out there. And that's the reason why we don't. And I think that's the reason why, certainly, and it's interesting, from a corporate organizational level, in some ways it's easier for the people at the top to show vulnerability, because they haven't got that fear of backlash or losing their job, or they're losing their career. So in some ways it's easier to pioneer from the top. But the real challenge is kind of trying to get the vulnerability angle from the grassroots up. And therein lies the biggest challenge. And that's certainly organization specific, depending on which organization I'm working with and the culture they have at the moment. Some have adapted really easy. Some we brought them into like team meetings or leadership meetings, where we were coaching people to the leaders, the managers, to show vulnerability, to build a depth of relationship with their group of people far stronger than you would on a superficial level. And I think certainly I've been doing a lot of writing for people like HR Director and HR Zone recently on being able to use vulnerability in conversations with people. We all know that over the past 14 months, and still we're going through very challenging, turbulent times. So if we're having difficult conversations with people, sometimes we can get too defensive. If we can show vulnerability, even on a one-to-one basis like this, we'll have a depth of relationship far stronger than if we didn't do that. And if we can just drop our guard a little bit every single day, we'll start to take that on as a real cultural shift. And I think that's where we need to get to.
Awesome. I love that really profound and step-by-step approach, because it's very difficult. It feels like dropping off your mask. It's like undressing your clothes, I guess. It's
and actually that might be a good thing today. That shows it's Mental Health Awareness Week. The theme is nature, so I'm kind of trying to live up to the piece. This is also the closest thing I've got to a holiday in a year, so I'm taking this. Anyway, I digress. But the masking thing is really crucial. I think there's two reasons why I got to that position of breakdown personally, and speaking to other, certainly at exec level, but also other people that have been through that experience of burnout then breakdown. The two reasons that most people get to that point, one of them is that masking behavior. We try and be what people want to see in us. We try and be what situations demand of us, but we sure don't damn show ourselves. Because when we show ourselves, we tell ourselves that fear that drives us. We tell ourselves we're going to get shot at, dismissed or judged or not loved, or all those things that we tell ourselves. So we end up mirroring everybody, but we lose our identity. Because if we're not living a life or running a business on our terms, by default, we're living a life on somebody else's terms. And that's enough every single day to drive me out of my comfort zone just a little bit more. And it's a great place to be, just outside of your comfort zone, because you can do that. It's manageable. I think on that vein, the second reason why people get to that point of breakdown, and it's an exercise I ask audiences to do, is to say, if I ask you to get out your calendar now, to get out your diary now, is there a part of your day today, 30 minutes a day, that's just reserved as if it were your best client, just for you to rest and recover and recharge so that you can go again strong tomorrow? And I bet you there isn't. We'll fill up our work diaries, all of our work stuff, all of our commitments, and then we'll give away the rest of our time to whoever shouts loudest. So if you're suddenly in a position where your work time goes to work, your home time goes to everybody else, where do you actually feature in your own life? And that's the problem. The challenge with mental health and anxiety and lots of different things isn't about what those things are. It's about the effect it has. It keeps us in our comfort zones. It stops us from living a life on our terms. That's the true impact of having poor mental health. Because there's also there's a divide. Mental illness and mental health can really be lumped in together quite a lot. Mental illness absolutely needs to be professionally treated. Absolutely. That's not me. I'm not a fix. I'm not a solution. But mental health we all have. And I know the work that you do, the amazing work that you do and the company, is that we treat mental health as a muscle, something we can exercise, something we can shape and nurture, that every single day we give ourselves the best chance of being smarter, stronger, happier, whatever those things mean to you. And for me, that's where we need to focus on, recognizing that people will say to me, Nick, I have mental health. Yeah, absolutely you do. 100% of the humans on the planet have mental health. Whether it's good or bad, that's a whole different question. So if we can start to view mental health as a muscle, we can really start to create a positive impact in the world.
Absolutely. And we train our physical muscles, now with gyms being open, I guess. But, and it's linked to also your psychology, but it improves the oxygen, the physiology, of course. Someone said to me, can you do star jumps basically and with your smile and then try to cry or think of something, something sad? It doesn't work.
I love that. That's really good. Yeah, definitely.
So I think physiology is closely linked to that. But I love what you just said. Starting with booking out your 30-minute, and what do you do it just got me curious. What do you do in those 30 minutes for yourself? What are the things that help you?
I think that the world of personal development and well-being comes to that can be quite overwhelming when you're coming from a position where you don't feel too good or you're not in a good place. So my advice is very simply, for 30 minutes a day, do something that you love to do. I love country music. It depresses the hell out of a lot of people, but I love it. It tells a story. And so I immerse myself. I listen to music. Or it could be that I learned to play the guitar behind me very badly at the moment. I can play Amazing Grace very slowly and very badly. But it's just some time where it's not work, it's not life. It's just me and the guitar. And we're trying something, we're learning something together, and hopefully producing something beautiful in days to come. So I think simply, and the simple answer to your question is, do something that you love to do, which is just exclusively for you. Doesn't involve anybody else, just some time just for you.
Love it. And you know what? I started to ask myself, because sometimes we all experience these down moments. I guess for me, what has worked is I know probably very quickly how to get out of it. I don't make it for too long, I guess. Naturally, I'm a positive person, and probably I try to make it for an hour or so, or less than that if I can, just get out of it, and regardless of the situation. But it's not easy, especially if you're if this has been building up for what you just described. I can imagine, because the what you had as a breakdown, this has been like I can imagine revving a car at a high really speed, and and for a very long time. It's eventually the car will heat and needs to have it will break down, and then you can refurbish or replenish, and the car will be could be as new, and then this time I guess you're not gonna do the same way. You do it something different.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's exactly it, Marian. It's the one thing that whole process has taught me, and it has to be said that the worst times of my life have actually provided me with the most exciting future. So there's a lot to be said for that. That same energy that could have destroyed us can be the catalyst to create positive change, something beautiful, something powerful, something that wouldn't have existed without you going through any stuff in the first place. And I think the gift that really came from that for me was self-awareness. I know very well at any one time now exactly how I am. This isn't like a hallelujah, he's cured. I manage my stuff daily by using the things that I share with my audiences. I still use the stage as therapy space. I will share with thousands of people exactly what's going through my head right now, because actually that's how I work. That's how I get my accountability, and I bring people in, and people then know it's very real and it's authentic, and they can work with me on it. So it's about, and you've done this so well from what you were saying, it's about having your playbook, which is unique to you. You're not feeling too good, right? What's your playbook to come back as soon as possible? So you're not ruling out the fact that no one's going to be positive and happy all the time. There are going to be times where you don't feel that way, and that's okay. But what's your playbook to come back from that point as soon as you can? How resilient can we become?
And I love what you said. For example, personally, I also I love what you just said about self-awareness, because self-awareness will actually give you the opportunity to learn, and when you feel super excited or feel really good, I call this creative times, or when the muse is up, just notice that moment. Not only the bad moments, but notice those great moments that you have. Now that's what I started to do. And then as you start to notice them, then when you're down, and if you forget, because when you're down, your creativity goes out of the window, so you don't feel very creative. And then you make a note, look at the list, the rescue list, so to say, and just go down to that list and for all those best moments. And, for example, I like to listen to Greek music. It gives me like just a nice memory and thinking of the sea, of the blue, obviously the the blue ocean. You think of those.
I'm there with you now. As you're talking, I'm there with you. That sounds great.
The fish in Greece that they don't understand, it's one of those blue spots of the world where people live. A lot more people live to over the age of 100. So 10 times more, and there's a reason, because for example, it's one of those places where the penetration of the sea light goes much deeper in the water, because the water is cleaner, which basically as a result the fish create certain enzyme, which at least that's what I'm let's say not checked it out, but at least that's what I'm looking into, and that allows if you eat the wild fish from the wildly caught from the Greek Sea, that naturally you feel good because you nourish the body, and also is the company, the kind of relaxed state, the olives, all of these things coming together, and the good weather, and suddenly you bring that with the music, and the music brings all these triggers to me, so I can kind of like a reset button. And when I feel a little bit down or something, when I play certain music, the sounds like it's like a healing nourishment to the nervous system that I internally. So it touches those strings that heals you. That gives you that release, and that gives you that natural optimism and positivity coming back. Well, at least that's what I'm speaking for myself. But I just, if other people could be playing football, playing the guitar, as you mentioned, and I love what you just said. Notice what you really love doing. I think this is one of the best strategies for anyone that is feeling unwell or unhappy, or there's a problem, or start with self-awareness, and it won't happen overnight, but if you just make conscious efforts, I think you might see some great stacking effects coming your way.
Absolutely. And music is very powerful. I'm absolutely with you on that. But what you just did there was amazing, because the way that you told that story and you painted that image with your words, you took me there too. And I think that's the thing. It's about, for me, anxiety very much lived in regret from the past or fear of the future. Actually, today, I could pretty much deal with anything that came my way. And those stories, as you said, just shared then, that kind of vision that you shared, it takes you into the moment. And I think that's exactly what we need to start to do, is to really start to, as an author, Dave Peltzer called it, live in day-tight compartments. Absolutely plan and prepare for success tomorrow, but give everything you've got emotionally to today. And I think there it starts to rein in that kind of feeling of overwhelm or disconnection the other way. Because most of the things that we get anxious about, most of the things that stress us out, it's not reality. It's a question I like to ask, that thing you're anxious about right now, is it fact or is it the story that you're telling yourself? And most of the time, it's not the fact that's making us anxious. It's the story. I always use this example because it's a great little example, and I love little examples. I'm not a details guy. I was delivering a talk to a school, and a girl popped in the chat box. This was recently, and she put, what makes her really anxious is when she sends a message to her friend, but her friend doesn't message her back. But that's not what makes her anxious. That's the transaction. That's her message. What makes her anxious is the story she's telling herself around that. But she's been dismissed or judged or not loved or rejected. And it's the story she's putting around that. And actually, by the end of the call, she had heard back from her friend. But by the by, we can apply that thinking to every challenge, personally and professionally. Most of the time, the danger when it comes to mental health and anxiety is in the assumption of an outcome. As somebody who was always client-facing in business in my corporate life, I was always thinking, have I still got that client, or I haven't spoke to them in ages? You're always constantly catastrophizing. If we can bring it back into the fact of the matter, we actually start to manage anxiety at a really base level.
Love it. And you're absolutely right. Guys, stop saying these bad stories to yourself. I have a technique here that how do you silence the doubt or the bad story? The way I silence the bad story or the doubt is by immediate action and success. So when you take an immediate action on something that you're telling yourself or that's not going to happen, or you can't go to do something, or somebody's thinking something, you just pick up the phone, clarify that, or just go to the gym and just make sure. And then when the success comes back, or if your client is you're telling a story, this client might not be coming back, pick up the phone, think what you can do for your client, and come back with new business. Next time your mind will say, I better be careful what I'm thinking, because last time what happened, I took an action and I had a great success. So guys, just take an action and accomplish success, and that will silence the doubt.
I love your style.
It's just, for me, it's simple things that I've learned. I'm a self-taught. I'm not really any expert in anything in that aspect, but I love what I do, and I love to take care of people. That's naturally what's coming, and I think what you're doing is amazing, Nick. And we have a question here from our dear, really a close friend, and Stoyan Yankov, and he wanted to ask, Nick, could you share some advice for leaders who want to take care of their team's mental well-being, but they're unsure whether they're doing it fine or not due to working from home, etc.? Where do we start?
Okay, great question. Thank you. Now, there's two elements to this, I think. I think the first one is generally, whether it's from home or not from home, if it's in the office and workplace, that it's a human flaw wrapped in a kindness that we feel the need to fix anybody that comes to us with a problem. Now, especially, and it is kind of certainly for people like ourselves that try and help as many people, we need to understand that I'm guessing that most people would not be medical professionals or practitioners. So if somebody comes to us, they're not coming to us to be fixed. And I think that's where the burden comes from. The burden of leadership, the burden of being an employer, the burden of being an executive is actually in the who looks after the people that looks after people.
Mm.
Who looks after you because you look after other people. Who looks after me was a conversation I was having with Stoyan just before. That we all need to have that space, but I think it can be eased by recognizing that people don't come to you to be fixed, but they do come to you to be heard. I think essentially in life, people just want to be heard and they want to be understood. If we can do that for anybody, they will find their own way forward. So how I try to reposition this for leaders is around the concept of somebody comes to you to share about mental illness, for example. Now, firstly, that's a massive well done to you for having the trust and rapport with somebody strong enough that they will start to share their innermost things with you. That's amazing. It's an amazing trait. However, there is a responsibility because it could be the only time they decide to open up to anybody. So there is a responsibility, but it's still not to fix them. So what I would say is to actively listen, really genuinely listen to what they're talking about. Now, most people will present the byproduct or the symptom of, for example, anxiety. So whether they feel angry or low mood or stressed or tired or insecure, even jealousy sometimes. That's what people will talk about. But what lies behind that is high anxiety in this example. Once we've actively listened to somebody and they feel properly heard, actively signpost, get good at knowing the solutions available within your organization. In the UK especially, the fastest route to help, sadly, I guess, is through the organization and not publicly. There's a long delay for help a lot of the time when it comes to mental health services. So get good at knowing, as a leader, the solutions available at hand so that when somebody comes to you and you've really listened to them, you can then say, actually, I think this is going to be a great way forward for you. And by not taking on that burden yourself, you then empower yourself to have more positive conversations around mental health. And hey, you change the culture. And it's really simple. And if we can start to treat it that way, and that's remotely or in the office, if we can start to treat it that way, you set a precedent that everybody starts looking out for each other without having that heaviness of responsibility.
Love it. In summary, actively listen, but do not provide them the solution.
No, exactly. So don't fix, actively listen, actively signpost without judgment.
What does that mean, signpost without, clearly without
signpost
judgment?
Means that, so for example, somebody came to me about a certain challenge within the mental health kind of arena, then say, for example, it was high anxiety, then I know that within their organization, there could be counseling available or therapy. But if that wasn't an option, I also know, and I have a section of my website, a need help section, where I list lots of different resources that people can go to find help, whether that be trusted partners and practitioners, or whether that be charities and organizations that work in the mental health sector.
Lovely.
But I think it's also worth recognizing, as responsible leaders, as we all try to be, that if people will open up to you about mental illness, something as sensitive as that, then they may open up about anything. It could be about sexuality or gender or race or grief or abuse, or all these things that we just don't talk about usually. So we can also get good at knowing the organizations that support everybody. And we don't have to be part of a community to use our platform to create positive change like you do. You're a great example of that. You have a platform, you're using your voice to create positive change, and Leaders Who Care. It's an amazing concept, and well done you. But for me, I am not a member of the Black and ethnic minority community, but I still create positive change because I use my platform to do that. There's gender imbalance when it comes to professional speaking, that I work in that space to try and correct that gender imbalance. There's so much we can do because not everybody is as fortunate as us to have the platforms that we do. And that's why we need to use our voice to really speak up and speak up for the people that quite often don't have a voice. Love
it, Nick. I definitely would like to create another episode, with yourself as well, because this what you're doing is amazing work. But, just kind of to wrap it up in here, tell us what excites you in this moment in time. You've done a lot, you've seen a lot, you've revved the engine for quite some time on a high speed. How does excitement and what motivates you in the current moment?
I think what really excites me is having experienced that journey of not being able to share my story to sharing my story, is watching other people go through that same process. So I will start to work with people, whether it be in one of my monthly academy sessions or one-to-one, whatever that may be, but they come in not even having the confidence to say their name in public. And by the end of one session, they're talking about everything in their lives. And that excites me because I know the opportunities that will create for them as they go through. And it creates this ripple effect that they will then help other people to do that as well. That's what really excites me.
Lovely. And if you closing your eyes and you had no limits and see absolutely no restrictions, just free, completely free and everything, what's your vision for a better world, in the short midterm? What's your vision?
I think for me, it does come back to being prepared to champion communities that you may not even be part of. So really doing that big group hug thing and getting everybody going towards the same direction, giving everybody a voice, everybody a chance, and using that platform to create positive change. For me, that's where it's at. I think if everybody took that same kind of attitude and that same approach to supporting other people, there will be in a stronger position than where we are globally.
Love it. The world needs more care in everything. More care in healthcare, more care in education, more care in food, more care in mental health.
Absolutely.
In every aspect we can do. And finally, Nick, where can people find you? People or companies, because clearly it's what you're doing is tremendous, and really thank you for doing what you do.
Well, thank you. Very nice and simple. It's nickelston.com. That's it. And all of my links and stuff can be found through there. It's all the W's, nickelston.com. Thank you.
Awesome. Nick, thank you for being a leader who cares, and keep spreading the goodness, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.